Cheat meals, how much they're glamorized, when do we get them, when do we expect them? I've worked with thousands of people, that are fitness enthusiasts. They sign up to a coach before they've even got their plan. Hey bro, am I gonna get a cheat meal in this diet phase? It is what is top of mind. It is one of the things at the front of your mind, Typically, when are people in the fitness industry having cheat meals? It's normally on a weekend. But what have I seen with cheat meals? I've seen some rights, I've seen some wrongs. I've seen the purpose of cheat meals not being utilized properly. People misunderstanding what a cheat meal is. People taking the absolute piss. So what I wanted to get into today was cheat meals, discuss a bit more about the actual word cheat meal, the emotional ties it has, how a cheat meal is viewed, how a cheat meal is demonized, how a cheat meal is glamorized. What are we looking for when we're having a cheat meal? What are the actual benefits? Because at the end of the day, it's not just a reward because you stuck to your diet. We don't need a reward. We don't need a treat. We're not a dog. And then we've got our negatives. Oh, I've rubbed it out. Then we've got our negatives as well. The negative side of the cheat meal, as much as we're going to dig into the positive. So typically, rule of thumb, what used to be my cheat meal and what is my cheat meal now? So I used to be a pizza guy, huge pizza guy. Large Dominoes, dough balls, and some Krispy Kremes. That was my go-to cheat meal before I had an understanding about nutrition. What is my cheat meal now? I like to keep things moderate. I like to go out for a nice steak, double chips, double up my portion there with a nice side and a light dessert, something that is relatively clean. I always look for quality food sources when I'm having a cheat meal. But let's talk into the emotional ties. I've worked with males, females, young adults, later adults, and a lot of the time there's an emotional tie about a cheat meal. So psychologically, there's a psychological clutch, when it comes to cheat meals. Some people, you give them a cheat meal, they absolutely go off the radar. They go off the radar, they binge, and before you know it, they feel absolutely terrible. And if in a diet phase, they actually feel worse than what they did before they had that cheat meal. So when we look at the word cheat meal, you have a few names for it. Cheat meal, off-plan meal, which I do like that term. So we've got the off-plan meal. It's quite self-explanatory. It's a meal that you have off your plan. We've got a free meal. So a free meal, how free meals work is coaches normally set a caloric intake, and then you have free range over that meal. So again, a free meal, forgot the L. A free meal here, so an off-plan meal, you just have whatever you want off-plan. Do you know what I mean? But without relating back to a cheat meal, psychologically, if you I've had clients, they use the word cheat, they go crazy. Off-plan works better for them. Free meal is normally, if I give someone a free meal, we have caloric restrictions, but it's a free meal. So if I said to someone you could have 1,200 calories, they might have a Nando's wrap and chips, which is 900 calories. And they might have an extra 300 calories. They might have 150 calories from pineapple, and they might have one square bar again, and then we've hit that 1,200 calories, and that's their free meal because they've made the choices there. We've got the off-plan meal as well, which is just whatever you want there. And we're just not demonizing the word cheat meals. We're not going crazy when we see the word cheat meals. And then we got my favorite, social meal. That is the term I like to use when I've got clients in a diet and deficit. Obviously, when you're dieting, you have a lot of constraints. You might actually turn down social events. You might miss, birthdays, etc., etc. So I like the word social meal because, again, it's not about being greedy. It's not about just eating everything in sight. I say eat a meal in great company, and it's about the people you're around and enjoying that experience. So a social meal. Eat socially. When you're in a social circle and everyone's eating a similar sized portion, everyone's eating a respectable amount, you're not going to go into a restaurant and order free mains and free starters. So have a social meal. If you can't deal with the terminology cheat meal, we've got an off-plan meal, which again, free off-plan meal, whatever you want, a free meal within a caloric range, and then a social meal where you eat in a social setting and enjoy the company and replenish and get back to dieting. So that's, a lot of the times I said, I'll go and have a cheat meal, and people go crazy. So where would I place a cheat meal in my day? If I was working with a coach and he said, have a cheat meal, off-plan, social meal, free meal, where would I place that in my day? Replace my last meal and always have it before bed. Why would I replace my last meal? Because it's going to allow me to save some calories to be able to enjoy that meal. because a lot of the times if you're not replacing that meal, you're going to get to that cheat meal and you don't really fancy it. I want hunger to be present, so there's a bit of enjoyment when it comes to that free meal. And why before bed? The last meal you have before bed, because again, with some people, if they have a cheat meal earlier in the day, they have a bit of sugar with their dessert, that sets off their cravings for the day. And constantly, sugar is the devil. Your brain's telling you, I need a bit more sugar, I need it. And it opens that gateway of the sweet tooth. Whereas if we have it before bed, we'll have a regular sized portion. It will prevent you wanting to snack during the day, prevent you want to continue to eat. The biggest overconsumption of free meals, cheat meals, social meals, whatever you want to call them, it happens when clients have it, meal one, I'm having it for breakfast, or they have it in the middle of the day because they've opened that gateway. And sometimes when you've been in a calorie deficit and you have a huge meal, it opens that gateway of appetite and you can eat the world. And then you're constantly clock watching or watching your next meal or starving. I want you to enjoy it, end of the day. So what are we looking for here? Replenish leptin levels. Replenish leptin levels, what's that going to do? Increase metabolic rate. What's metabolic rate going to do? Increase the rate of fat loss, so getting leaner quicker. I'm not saying that that happens every time you have a cheat meal. I like to drive the body into a deficit over X amount of weeks and then have a replenishment meal and then go from here. And that's how people use the term on social media, spikes your metabolism. But no, there's a reason behind it. Replenish leptin levels, increase metabolic rate, elicit a greater rate of fat loss, and sort of re-kick that wheel, reset the wagon, get us going on. So what are we looking for? Leptin levels. Leptin replenish. Mental refresher. Been dieting all week, bit of brain fog, head's in the gutter, feel like shit, dragging your feet. Mental refresh. Mental reset. Not a treat, mental refresh. I've dieted all week, time to replenish, time to take myself. I always say as well, try and have your cheat meals on the days you're not training. Take yourself out of that environment, try and relax. So have that mental refresh in order to be able to push on again. Subconsciously, you have a cheat meal, the next day you go in the gym, you feel absolutely amazing. You feel absolutely amazing. So that's the mental refresh we want. And what do we get in the next day in the gym if we've had a great cheat meal? Due to higher sodium, higher carbohydrate intake, obviously we hold more water intramuscular. So when we go into the gym, we get a better pump. How many times have you gone and had a cheat meal, you've gone in the gym, the pump's been absolutely phenomenal, skin bursting. So that also is a mental refresher, because what I tend to say to clients is if you have a cheat meal on a Saturday, and you're in a deficit phase, that cheat meal should replenish you for 3 to 4 days. And then I expect you dragging your feet the Wednesday, the Thursday, the Friday into check-in. And then again, if you're in a good spot, we replenish again, repeat the process. Push on, energy's high. What's the benefit of having energy high? You train harder. You cardio harder. You do things with purpose and conviction. And we know with conviction, it's gonna lead to results. So what are we also looking for? A caloric spike. Why do I say that? I've got some clients that are mentally, they get into the diet phase and they worry that one meal of the week is going to ruin their whole progress. And that is genuinely not the case. If we're having 5 meals a day over 7 days, that's 35 meals a week. We're removing 1 for a cheat meal. That's not going to undo the progress in the week if you don't eat like a dick. So a caloric spike. Why do I say that? I've got a few clients that I give cheat meals, and because they're scared of ruining the progress, I say, hey bro, what did you have for your cheat meals? And when we work it out, they've only had 300 calories. So we're not getting that caloric spike we're looking for. So I don't like to set caloric ranges too much on cheat meals, unless I say have a free meal. Just eat enough till you're satisfied. Not till you're bloated, not till you can't eat, not till you can't get up, but till you're satisfied and you're not really looking for your next meal. So what are the negatives of cheat meals? I always say this to clients that, are a bit eager for cheat meals. I say, hey, remember it's a meal. The key word, meal, not a buffet banquet. You wouldn't go to a restaurant. What would you have in a restaurant? You might have a starter and main dessert or dessert. That's a meal. Having 2 large pizzas from Domino's is not a normalized meal and 12 Krispy Kremes. So again, the negatives are overconsumption, eating too much. So overconsumption is one of the biggest things here. So yeah, man, I had 24 slices of Domino's, 8 dough balls, and overconsumption. It's not what we're looking for. And if we do have that overconsumption, what is the negative? Signs of lethargy. And what do I mean by that? Obviously, a cheat meal's purpose is to replenish, improve performance. If I go out and smash 24 slices of Domino's, I probably won't want to get out of bed in the morning. Feel lethargic, feel slow. That's gonna correlate into my sessions in the gym. Being slow, not functioning as optimal as possible. So lethargy. So I always say, have a food source, one that you can go in the gym the next day and perform well with. And then what's another negative? Digestion. Digestion. Typically higher fats than you typically have. If you're a dude who likes pizza, you're gonna have loads of cheese, dairy, not good for everyone. Skewing digestion by overeating, waking up bloated the next day. Not steady stool movement. Again, not being able to recover and have your first meal the next day. So you hold off on food and the cheat meals actually not serve the purpose. Do you know what I mean? So there's a few things here. The emotional tie with the word cheat meal. What are we looking for? And the negatives. And then my tips for cheat meals, which I obviously said is last meal of the day, quality food sources that we know digest well and we can recover from. And lastly, the last tip is putting the meal one day before a body part you really want to bring up. That's not because we're going to shut all the carbs intramuscular. It is just a case of we're going to replenish our energy so we can go in and absolutely smash that session to the best of our ability. So planning it around big sessions. So planning that meal around big sessions, I'm not a huge fan of having a big cheat meal and a rest day the next day because we've took ourselves into a huge calorie surplus. I mean, I'll bring myself right into a deficit. I'd rather have that meal, then get into some hard training and go from there. So that's my take on cheat meals. The emotional sides, what we're looking for, the negatives, and the tips of the day when it comes to cheat meals.